I think the number one misconception around entrepreneurship and like the main thing that I kind of struggled to realize when I first got into it is just the whole idea of time freedom. Like you get into entrepreneurship because you think, oh, I'm escaping the 9 to 5. I get control over my life. I can leave work whenever want, whenever I could wake up whenever I want, etc. And I've constantly been reminded that's just the farthest thing from the truth. And I think every entrepreneur can kind of speak for the fact that it's way different in the sense that you don't get to escape your work. Like you don't clock out and shut off the laptop and then you're done. Like that's not how that works. And it kind of gets worse, not worse and worse, but like more and more prevalent as I continue to grow my businesses. I just experience like it's my life. My business is my life right now. Like I can't go to the gym without getting like a phone call, or a text, or like, oh no, I forgot to do this. I got to do this when I get home, or I got to watch this video in between sets and like get this back to this part. Like, and I'm not complaining, but if you do want to start your own business, you're not going to be very good if you are expecting to just get your time freed up and a sense of passive income. Like, that's not a thing. And I think that's the main reason why so many people kind of romanticize the idea of owning your own business. But in reality, like, I genuinely think people who work a regular 9 to 5 are more free, more mentally free, time free, etc. And that sounds crazy, but I really do think it's true. Especially as the entrepreneur of a business, like you can't like you don't get to go to sleep without like the weight of the business on your shoulders. And I guess, I mean, as I've become as I've developed as an entrepreneur, I try to, you know, make decisions faster and just kind of like relieve anxiety through action so I don't really deal with too much stress when the day's over. But there are definitely like nights where I'm just like, I can't even fall asleep because I'm like, oh my God, like everything is just crumbling around me. Versus if you're working a 9 to 5, you get to go home and like you just show back up the next day. Like, sure, maybe your day to day is a little tougher, like you're doing different things or like, oh, you have pain in the butt type of activities because something's going on in the business. It's way different than like the weight of like imagine that times 100 because the entrepreneur has like people working for them, they have customers relying on them, they have payroll to make, etc. And obviously I'm not at the scale where I'm like, paying hundreds of people to work for me. But it's just such a flawed idea. Um and I think that I'm kind of glad that I didn't know that was the case when I first got into business because I think it probably would have swayed me out of it. Actually, I don't know. I kind of like, I seriously think like the more I observe myself and like think back on my childhood, I think I was like one of those people who was like wired to be an entrepreneur. Like, I don't know if that's really a thing, but I don't know. I like the way I like the way Alex Hormozy defines everything, but he talks about how like he doesn't think people are born to be something. He just thinks they're rewarded for certain behaviors at younger ages, and that kind of just shapes the reality, which I would say that's pretty true. I mean, I've always been whatever. I'm not gonna get into my whole backstory of how I always think I've been an entrepreneur, but I just it's not for most people. It's really not for most people. I'm not dissuading people from trying to do their own thing, but you can, I think, become a very good person working for a company and not deal like seriously be more time free. And it sounds so crazy. It's like, but you don't. I remember this was like a whole thing when I first got into business in my senior year of high school. Nobody got it. Like nobody understood the fact that like I had to work on stuff. Like when I would, when I started separating myself from the friends I had back then, I would be like, oh no, I can't go out. Like I got to work on this. And they couldn't understand that like I had stuff to work on. They're like, but you have your own business. Like you don't have to go clock in to a shift. Like you can come, like you can just not work whenever you want to not work. And I don't blame them. Like that's what it looks like from the outside. But when you actually operate a business, like you just know that's the farthest thing from the truth. There's always stuff to work on. In fact, like if you really wanted to, you could literally just work 24/7. Like very possible. But it kind of sucks sometimes when it's like, you just want to I don't know, at the end of the day, not have your phone blow up. But you also, like, what's the alternative? Like, you're going to be slower getting back to people. You're going to let fires burn when you could just solve them. But, like, oh no, you're clocked out. You're clocked out. Like, that doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist when you own your own business. And that was one of my lessons in my 2024 lessons videos. Like, be willing to do business at any time, any day, etc. Because I really do think that that generates you a lot of opportunities. Like, meet people where they're at. If I'm awake, I'm answering the phone. I go to sleep with my ringer on every night. Like, even if I'm not awake, I'll probably wake up and answer the phone. It's just like making yourself accessible, I think, is very valuable. And most businesses don't do that. And I think that's why, like, I think this is one thing that's kind of super separate in the mindset of like small business owners with a small business mindset versus people who are trying to like build empires or, you know, big business owners. I'm obviously not a big business owner yet, but I have very high aspirations of what I would like to do with this business. So I do think that my mindset is probably 10 years ahead of where my business is right now. But I think a lot of small business owners, you know, they shut down the shop for the day or whatever, and then they're done. And I may be wrong. Maybe they do go home and work. I don't know. I'm reading the it's called The E-Myth Revisited right now. It really talks about like this is like the most ADD video ever, but I promise it all kind of circles back in the fact that like entrepreneurs are not very time free. But this video kind of just talks about how like entrepreneurs work on the wrong stuff, and not video, book. Talks about how they work on the wrong stuff, and most entrepreneurs aren't entrepreneurs. They're like technicians turned entrepreneurs, which means like, oh, you're a good mechanic. You're gonna go start a mechanic business or whatever that is. But then you don't actually have the business knowledge to grow a mechanic business. Like, you're just a mechanic with all the pressure on you. It's like you have your job plus everything else that you don't know how to do. And I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at in this video is you do like as the entrepreneur, you have everyone's responsibility. Like, if people fuck up, it's on you. It's not on other people. If your customer is unhappy, it's on you. It's like everything, and those things spiral 24 hours of the day. So that's what I mean by like you can't get away from it. And there are definitely days where I wish it's like, dude, I wish I could just shut off my laptop, my phone, because I'm clocked out, get my hourly pay and hourly days work done, and, you know, just relax. But that's not what I signed up for, because I don't want to live that life. And, you know, there's obviously consequence for everything. Choose your heart type of thing. But I think that's another thing, too, that people don't understand, is when you're working in a 9 to 5, you can kind of, like, sure, you have certain things you have to get done. But if you're, like, an hourly employee, like, dude, I remember I've had one W-2 job my whole entire life. I worked at a marina. Lasted 2 weeks and I quit. It's terrible. I was a pretty unproductive employee because I was just waiting for the hours to go by. When you're an entrepreneur, you can't do that because like you rely on your own income. Like you're the determinant of like how much money you make, essentially. You are responsible for everything. So when you're in a position where you have to drive like revenue towards the business so you can survive, that's a lot different than, you know, clocking in for a certain amount of hours a day. You have a couple things you have to check off. It's like, no, like you're trying to survive every single day. I mean, obviously I'm not trying to survive. I started when I was 17, so like I still live at home and eat my parents' food, which is, I'm very lucky to do that. You know, I didn't start out having to feed a family and stuff, which is great. But there still definitely is a sense of like, oh, like everything's relying on you. So you need to work on the right stuff. You need to work on stuff hard. But that's like my kind of little talk tonight. So I was thinking about it today. Just as I was getting like I left for the gym thinking, oh, I'm gonna be good, and then later tonight I can like do some deep work and then go to bed and be fine. I leave for the gym and I'm already getting text messages from like customers, my one editing guy, like, which I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying you don't clock out when you own a business. And I think so many people get into business because they think they're gonna get all their time back and they make passive income and they can wake up whenever they want and go to sleep whenever. Like, people are calling me, and that's great, but it's just not true. So I think if more people knew that, they'd have a better expectation of like what it's like. Because when you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with people. People operate 24/7. People have different schedules. Some people are morning people. Some people are night people. And you just kind of have to deal with that. And there's never be a time where you don't have shit to do. So, yeah, that's what you're signing up for when you're an entrepreneur. And it's cool. And I, like, love it. I love what I do. But it's not normal. And, like, you really would, like, I swear, I'm telling you, you would have not an easier life, but like, you'd have a more free life. Like, seriously, you'd have a more free life working 9 to 5. Pretty much that's what you're getting into. That's all I gotta say. Like, when you open your own business or, decide you're gonna, like, rely on yourself for income, like, these are things you're gonna have to deal with. It's just how it goes. And, it's a price I'd pay every single 10 out of 10 days. But it's a reality. So